I still remember the sound of the mailbox slapping shut. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of day that smelled like wet asphalt and regret. I was home alone, sipping lukewarm coffee in my small apartment above the bakery on Main Street. The world was gray, my life even grayer. Routine had become my security blanket: wake up, work at the library, call my mom once a week out of guilt, repeat. That day, everything changed. The envelope was thick, official looking. Government sealed, with red ink that bled through like a warning. I assumed it was a tax document or one of those boring notices you toss into the junk pile and forget. But as I ripped it open, my breath caught in my throat. Final notice, mortgage default warning. Addressed to me for a house I didn't recognize. This must be a mistake, I mumbled, flipping through the pages. My name, my social security number, my credit details, all correct. The address. A two-story house in a suburb 40 miles away. I'd never been there in my life. According to the document, I owed $278,000 on a mortgage I'd never applied for. And if I didn't act within 10 business days, foreclosure proceedings would begin. I sat down hard on the couch, heart racing, head spinning. My hands trembled as I dialed the number on the letter. A robotic voice answered, transferring me to a representative after a long wait. "Yes, this is Rachel Moore," I said, forcing calm. "I received a foreclosure warning, but I've never purchased a property." The man on the other end hesitated. "Ms. Moore, according to our records, you signed mortgage documents for this property 18 months ago." 18 months? That's impossible. I've never owned a home in my life. He read off the purchase date, the loan number, the email on file. It was mine. So was the phone number. I didn't know whether to scream or cry, but somewhere in the pit of my stomach, a sick suspicion was already forming. I hadn't spoken to my brother Derek in months. Not really. We hadn't been close since Dad died, and after that, he'd started showing up less and asking for money more. The last time I saw him, he asked me to co-sign a car loan. I said no. He smiled, but it never reached his eyes. And now this? I couldn't jump to conclusions, not yet, but my gut whispered a name: Derek. I spent the next few hours calling banks, pulling credit reports, scouring every detail. And there it was, my worst nightmare confirmed. A mortgage application under my name, signed with a digital signature I didn't recognize but was legally binding. Someone had used my identity. Someone close enough to know my birth date, my social security number, my full legal name. I barely slept that night. Instead, I dug deeper. I found the property on a real estate site. A cream-colored house with a red door and manicured lawn. It was beautiful, peaceful, expensive. The listing mentioned a young couple buying it quickly, paying well above asking. I zoomed in on the photo of the front porch. There he was, Derek, standing with his arm around a blonde woman, holding keys in one hand and grinning like the devil himself. I dropped my phone. He used my name, my credit, my life. He bought that house pretending to be me, and no one had noticed. For the first time in years, rage overtook fear. It filled my lungs and burned behind my eyes. I wasn't a dramatic person. People called me quiet, dependable, forgettable even. But this was unforgivable. I wasn't just dealing with identity theft. I was dealing with betrayal. And I knew Derek. He wouldn't stop. He never did. He always found a way to turn guilt into charm, crime into accident, and consequences into someone else's problem. But not this time. This time I was going to be the problem. This time I wouldn't be the quiet sister who swept things under the rug. This time I would burn the rug and everything under it. I wasn't sure how yet, but I knew one thing. He was going to regret ever thinking I was weak. You wouldn't know Derek was a snake just by looking at him. He had the face of someone born to be trusted, dimples that appeared when he smiled, eyes the color of lake water after a storm, and a voice so smooth it could sell poison as honey. Growing up, people adored him. Teachers called him gifted. Neighbors left their doors unlocked when he came around. My parents, they practically worshipped him. And me, I was the afterthought. The shy, quiet kid with her nose in books and her dreams hidden in notebooks no one ever read. So, of course, when Derek did something wrong, and he did it a lot, I was the one who was too sensitive, misunderstanding, making things up. Even when he lied, even when he stole, even when he got arrested in college for credit card fraud and told mom and dad it was a mistake with the bank. They bailated him out and blamed his friends. That was Derek, the golden boy. The master deflector. And now, I knew he hadn't changed. He'd just gotten better at hiding the knife behind his back. The next morning, I did what I never thought I'd do. I drove out to the house. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I left my phone off. I just drove. Each mile brought more nausea, more questions, more fury. The neighborhood was nice, too nice. The kind of place where people trimmed hedges on Sundays and waved at passing cars. The house stood proudly at the end of a cul-de-sac, its lawn perfectly mowed, an American flag fluttering on the porch. I parked down the street and walked past like I belonged. And there they were, Derek, his wife Amanda, their two kids, Charlie and Olivia, playing in the yard like a perfect family plucked from a Hallmark movie. He was laughing, laughing. As if nothing was wrong, as if he hadn't shattered my life for a house and a picket fence. I stared at him from behind my sunglasses, heart pounding. I felt like I was in a movie, waiting for the twist. Waiting for him to see me and suddenly realize everything was about to fall apart. But he didn't. He never even glanced my way. And for some reason, that hurt more than I expected. Because Derek didn't just steal from me. He erased me, used my name like it was nothing, lived my life like I never existed. I clenched my fists. I could have walked right up to him, screamed, punched, shattered that perfect image in front of his kids, but no. That would make me the villain. That's how he operated. Push you until you snap, then point at your meltdown like proof of your instability. Not this time. I turned away and walked back to my car, my mind racing with one single, undeniable truth. He thinks he got away with it. He thinks I'll disappear again like I always do. He thinks he's untouchable. I went home and pulled out an old shoebox from my closet. It was filled with things I hadn't looked at in years: a torn photo of us as kids, letters from our dad, documents from Derek's first arrest, pieces of a life I'd tried to forget. But this wasn't about forgetting anymore. It was about remembering every lie, every time he made me feel small, every time he smiled while I suffered. I needed to become someone new, someone stronger, someone Derek wouldn't see coming, because I wasn't just going to stop him. I was going to destroy him. A week later, I walked into the county records office with trembling fingers but fire in my chest. I'd done my research. The mortgage documents had my name, yes, but more importantly, so did the deed. I wasn't just a victim of fraud. On paper, I was the legal owner of that house, even if I didn't remember signing anything, even if I never set foot in it until now. The woman behind the glass looked at me like I was lost. "I'm here about a property," I said quietly, sliding the address across the counter. "It's listed under my name. I need copies of all associated documents." She blinked, then typed something into her system. "You're Rachel Moore." I nodded. She printed out a thick stack of papers and handed them over. My heart pounded as I flipped through the first few pages. There it was: mortgage agreement, warranty deed, purchase confirmation. Each one bearing my name, neatly printed, elegantly signed, but it wasn't my signature. It looked like mine, close enough to fool someone, but I'd worked in libraries for years. I knew the curves of my letters like old friends. This wasn't one of them. Whoever forged it had practiced, studied, learned to become me on paper. I bit my lip as the clerk looked at me curiously. "Is everything all right?" I forced a nod. "Yes, just routine records check." But it wasn't routine, it was a war declaration. I walked out of the office with a folder full of betrayal, every page a dagger Derek had plunged into my back. And still, the law said it was mine. The house, the debt, the liability. I was on the hook for every cent. Back home, I scanned the documents into a private drive and locked them behind encrypted passwords. I printed copies, made backups, kept one set at work hidden in an old filing cabinet labeled Library Inventory 2012. I wasn't taking chances, but something gnawed at me. Why? Why would he do this to me? Of all people, why not a stranger? A fake name? A burner identity? Why me? I thought back to our last conversation, months ago. He'd called late at night, asking if he could crash at my place for a few weeks. He was between jobs, Amanda was pregnant again, things were tough. I said no, and maybe that was when he decided to take more than a couch. I replayed the call in my head, word for word. "Come on, Ratch, we're family. You're not even using your credit, might as well put it to good use." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I stayed up late, tracing every breadcrumb. Credit reports, bank statements, flagged accounts. He hadn't just bought the house, he'd opened a line of credit, bought furniture, paid for renovations, all in my name. I called the mortgage company again, this time pretending to be Amanda, just a wife checking on her husband's account. "Of course, ma'am," the rep said cheerily. "Everything is up to date, though the system lists Rachel Moore as the primary borrower." "Right, yes," I said quickly, just double-checking. He paused. "We do have a signed authorization here." She listed Derek Moore as cohabitant and manager of the property. "Would you like me to email a copy?" "Yes, please." I stared at the PDF for a long time. There was the signature again, my name, my handwriting, my life used against me, and somehow I was still legally responsible. That night I drove by the house again. The lights were on. The kids' laughter echoed through the open window. Amanda was cooking in the kitchen. Derek was in the living room, feet up, flipping through a magazine. My name was on the mailbox. It made my skin crawl. He'd built a life with my identity. Lived like a king while I scrambled to pay rent. His kids went to private school. Mine, the ones I'd never have, were buried under debt before they even existed. And here I was, outside, in the dark, watching it all like an intruder in my own stolen dream. I wanted to storm in, call the cops, burn it down, but that's not what this story would be. No, this wasn't a firestorm. This was slow poison. I didn't just want justice. I wanted him homeless. You'd think when your brother steals your identity and buys a house under your name, your family would back you up. But you don't know my family. I called my mom first. She answered after 2 rings, her voice warm like always. Rachel, sweetheart, it's been forever. I didn't waste time. Mom, did you know Derek used my name to buy a house? Silence, then a soft laugh. What are you talking about, honey? I'm serious. He used my credit, forged my signature. I have documents. He committed fraud, and now I'm in debt for a house I didn't even know existed. More silence, then the worst words imaginable. Oh, come on, Rachel. Don't start this again. I felt the blood drain from my face. Start what? This jealousy thing. Derek's been through a lot. He told us you were being distant lately, acting off. I told him to give you space. He what? My voice cracked. He told you that I'm being distant? Mom, he committed a federal crime. You always think the worst of him. Maybe he just needed help and didn't know how to ask. You're always so rigid with him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like I was screaming into a void that insisted on staying blind. Do you know what this is doing to my life? I could go to jail, Mom. I could lose everything. You won't go to jail, sweetie, she said dismissively. He's your brother, just talk to him. Work it out privately. Work it out privately. Like this was some sibling spat over a broken toy. I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't even try calling Dad. He'd always been a shadow in the house, present but hollow, only coming alive when Derek succeeded at something. Football games, graduation, engagement party. Every toast ended with some version of, "That's my boy." I was a flicker to him, a background character in the Derek show, but the worst blow came when Amanda called me. I didn't even know she had my number. Rachel, she said in that honey-drenched voice of hers, I heard you're upset. Upset, you think that's the word for it? I know things got complicated, but we really thought you were okay with the arrangement. I nearly dropped the phone. The arrangement. Derek said you knew, that you offered to help. He said you didn't need the credit anyway, and that this could be your investment too, like family sharing success. I wanted to scream, instead I laughed. A hollow, humorless sound. Did he also tell you I was planning to donate a kidney and name my firstborn after him? She paused. Rachel, this doesn't have to get ugly. We've already built a life here. The kids love this home. And I love not being defrauded, but look how that turned out. You don't want to hurt the children, do you? She asked softly, like she thought I was some ticking bomb she could defuse with guilt. And there it was, the play. Make me the bad guy, the destroyer of a happy home, the bitter spinster sister who couldn't be happy for her successful, charming brother. It was genius, really. They weren't just stealing my identity, they were rewriting the story. Casting themselves as victims, me as the cold, unfeeling villain, and my parents bought it. My friends bought it. Hell, even our cousin Melissa sent me a passive-aggressive text. Families stick together, Ratch. Don't blow things up over paperwork. Over paperwork, I was drowning and they were handing me bricks, so I stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped defending myself, and I started planning. Because I'd spent my whole life being the quiet one, the easy one, the forgettable one, but Derek made one mistake. He brought me into the spotlight, and now I had nothing to lose. They wanted a villain, I'd give them one. It was a Wednesday night when I made the decision. I would go inside the house. Not with keys, not with permission, because I never had either. I'd go in through the back when no one was home, when the windows were dark and the silence hung heavy like a secret too big to hold. It wasn't breaking and entering, technically. The house was in my name. I was the legal owner. That was the one twisted perk of Derek's fraud. He hadn't thought to hide the paper trail. He didn't expect me to fight back. He thought I'd vanish like always, but not this time. At 8:52 p.m., I pulled up 3 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance. I wore all black like I was going to rob myself. It felt absurd. But I couldn't risk being seen. The backyard was quiet. The lights inside were off, no car in the driveway. I'd been watching the house for 2 days now. I knew their routine. Amanda took the kids to her sister's on Wednesdays. Derek usually hit the bar with his buddies. He'd be gone until at least 11. I stepped over the garden stones, crouched near the rear sliding door. My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. I wasn't a criminal. I'd never even shoplifted. But now? Now I was about to walk into a life that had been stolen from me. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. That was Derek, charming on the outside, careless underneath. He never thought anyone would come for him. The living room was immaculate, stylish, cozy, the kind of space that looked like a family actually lived there and loved each other in it. Throw pillows on the couch. A baby photo framed above the fireplace. Toys lined up along the wall in rainbow bins. And in the middle of it all, my name. On the mortgage. On the utility bills stacked on the kitchen counter. On the framed "Welcome home, more family" letter from the real estate agent. I walked slowly, absorbing everything like a ghost finally returning to haunt its own life. The kitchen was spotless, granite counters. A bowl of fruit too perfect to be real. I opened drawers. Amanda had labeled everything: spatulas, storage bags, kid plates. They were building a life, nesting, making memories, with money I'd never seen, under a name that was mine. I moved to the office. That's where it hit me. There, in a locked drawer I popped open with a paperclip, were the documents, all of them. The application Derek forged. The fake email account with my name but his IP address. Notes scrawled in his handwriting. Bank calls at 3, pretend R's voice. Rachel's SSN, confirm, new printer for signature scans. It wasn't a mistake, it was premeditated. He planned this, studied me, practiced my signature, memorized my social, faked my email, all while smiling in my face the last time we had lunch. I collapsed into the chair. Suddenly, I wasn't furious. I wasn't on fire, I was just broken. Tears spilled before I could stop them. They weren't dramatic or loud. They were quiet, slow, exhausted, like my body had finally realized the weight it had been carrying. It wasn't just the house. It was every time I'd let it slide. Every time I forgave him because he's family. Every time I swallowed my pride when he borrowed money and never paid it back, when he spread lies and I said nothing, when he got praise and I got silence. He didn't just steal my identity. He stole my silence and weaponized it. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my jacket and stood up. Then I saw it. In the corner of the office was a bulletin board, family schedules, school letters. A sticky note that read, "Contact HOA Ray, noise complaint," but pinned just under it was a printout of a credit score. Mine, he was still checking it, still monitoring, still controlling. That was the moment the grief burned away and the rage came back. I took photos of everything, every forged document, every password scribbled in Derek's slanted cursive, every shred of evidence. And then I left. I didn't take anything. But I did close the door a little harder than necessary, because now I wasn't wondering how to prove it anymore. I had the proof, and I knew what came next. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was justice. The next morning, I woke up to a call from my bank. "Ms. Moore," the woman said cautiously, "we've identified some suspicious activity on your checking account." I sat up in bed, heart already racing. Suspicious how? There was a transfer request yesterday from a new device, attempting to move funds to an external account under the name D. Moore. We flagged it and froze the transaction, but we need you to verify your recent activity. I closed my eyes, it was happening again. Derek wasn't done with me, not even close. And now he was reaching into the little I had left. "I didn't authorize anything," I said through clenched teeth. "That's identity theft, again." The woman sounded tired. "We've escalated it to our fraud team, but I need to be honest with you, Ms. Moore. This isn't the first red flag." She was right, I'd ignored the warnings before. Small, strange withdrawals. Denied transactions at places I never visited. I told myself it was just bank errors, just digital noise. I should have known better. I hung up and opened my laptop, pulling up my credit report again. Score, 502. A financial death sentence. Late payments on a mortgage I didn't know I had. A car loan I'd never seen. Medical bills in my name from a clinic 2 states away. I was being dismantled from the inside out, not by a stranger, but by my own brother. I spent the next 6 hours calling creditors, explaining, begging, holding for supervisors, sending scanned IDs, notarized statements, anything I could to prove I wasn't behind the fraud. But the system doesn't care about tears or trauma. The system cares about signatures and names, and mine was all over everything. I called HR at the library where I worked. I'd recently applied for a promotion, one that came with better pay, benefits, and stability. The final background check was underway. I just wanted to check if everything's moving forward, I asked, trying to sound casual. There was a pause, too long, too practiced. Actually, Rachel, we were going to call you today. Something came up on the credit review. It's concerning. I didn't need her to finish. I can explain, I said quickly. It's fraud. My brother, he used my identity. I'm working on it. Another pause. We understand. But unfortunately, until it's resolved, we can't move forward with the promotion. I'm so sorry. I hung up before I screamed. I stared at the wall for a long time, not thinking, not breathing, just existing barely. He was winning. Derek was dismantling everything I'd built, my reputation, my finances, my future. And he was doing it with my face, my name, my silence. And no one believed me. Not the bank, not my job, not even my own mother. I was a ghost screaming in a soundproof room, but ghosts don't stay quiet forever. I started writing everything down. Every call, every transaction, every lie. I built a binder, labeled every section. I created a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, voices I spoke to, departments that brushed me off. I filed a police report, useless but necessary. I started tracking Derek's movements through public records, social media, even neighborhood forums. He'd left breadcrumbs everywhere. He thought no one would ever follow them. I reached out to an old college friend, Alina, now a freelance private investigator. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but when she heard my story, her voice changed. Rachel, she said slowly, this isn't just identity theft. This is systematic abuse. Can you help me? I asked. Yes, she said, but it's going to take time. You need to be patient. Patience, not exactly what I was famous for, but I said yes. Because this wasn't just about undoing what Derek did. It was about reversing the narrative. Because right now, the world thought he was the father of two in a beautiful home, and I was the unstable sister making noise. But soon the cracks would start to show. Soon people would see. I wasn't the one falling apart, he was. I walked into the attorney's office with a file folder so thick the clip had started to bend. Inside, photos, receipts, emails, forged documents, and printed screenshots. Proof of my unraveling life. Proof of Derek's betrayal. The receptionist barely looked up. Ms. Moore. Yes, I said. I have a 9:00 a.m. with Evan Cartwright. She nodded. He's ready for you. I followed her into a glass-walled conference room. Sleek, cold, professional. The kind of room where people signed divorce papers and sued each other into oblivion. Evan looked exactly like the kind of man you'd want as your attorney. Silver hair, sharp suit, eyes that didn't blink. Let's see what you've got, he said. I spread everything on the table, my binder, my notes, my pain. He flipped through it slowly, silently. After 20 minutes, he looked up. You've got one hell of a case. A surge of hope rose in my chest. So I can sue him. Evan hesitated. That depends. On what? On how far you're willing to go, and how cleanly you want to do this. I blinked. What does that mean? He leaned forward, fingers steepled. Rachel, technically the house is in your name. The mortgage, too. The bank sees you as the borrower. You could file to reclaim the property. But it'll trigger foreclosure unless someone keeps making payments. I can't afford those payments, I whispered. And Derek will fight it. He'll say you co-signed willingly. He'll say you gifted it. Hell, he might say you're unstable, especially if your family sides with him. They already have, I muttered. He nodded like he expected that. Here's the thing. Legally, identity theft is hard to prove when it involves family, especially if the paper trail, while forged, looks reasonable. His defense could be that you allowed him to act on your behalf, and now you're just mad it didn't work out. I felt the room spin, so he could walk away from this. Evan was quiet for a moment. I didn't say that. I said he could make it hard, but there are loopholes, pressure points. Like what? For example, you're the legal owner. You can evict him. My heart jumped. Wait, really? Yes, but you'll need to do it carefully, officially. No breaking and entering. No threats. If you're trying to take the high road, we have to keep your hands clean. I'll help you file a legal eviction notice. But be warned, it'll escalate everything. I stared at the papers again, my name. His lies, my life held together by paperclips and desperation. What about criminal charges? He sighed. That's a slower road. You can report the identity theft to the police, file a complaint with the FTC. Eventually, the DA might take it seriously. But unless he used your name to commit violent crimes or rack up hundreds of thousands in fraud, they might call it a civil matter. Even though he destroyed my credit, stole my future, they don't see it that way. I wanted to scream. Then what's the point of any of this? I asked. He looked me dead in the eye. Because you're not just trying to get justice, he said. You're trying to get your life back. That stopped me because he was right. This wasn't about revenge anymore, not entirely. It was about reclaiming what Derek stole, not just a house or money or a name, but my ability to sleep at night, to breathe without anxiety, to trust the world again. Okay, I said finally, eviction it is. He gave me a slow, approving nod. Good, and while we're at it, let's start gathering more evidence. Track every cent he spent under your name, every signature, every lie. If he's careless, and I bet he is, we'll catch him in something bigger. I left the office with a new folder, this one thin but heavier in another way. It was my weapon. It was the beginning of Derek's undoing. And this time, I wasn't waiting for anyone to save me. I was going to burn him down, one legal page at a time. If I was going to take Derek down, I needed more than just a binder of rage and a lawyer with good posture. I needed a pattern, a trail of deception longer than just me, because Derek didn't wake up one day and decide to commit identity theft. This was his pattern. I just hadn't been paying attention. Now I was wide awake. The first thing I did was call Alina, my college friend turned private investigator. She'd already found a few leads. Your brother's not new to this game, she said on the phone. There's a history. He's just been clever about staying one step ahead. Show me everything, I said. She did. Case 1, Lisa Hendricks, ex-girlfriend, filed a police report 7 years ago accusing Derek of opening a credit card in her name and maxing it out. Charges were dropped. Why? She retracted her statement after settling it privately. Alina found court notes hidden deep in public records. Derek had promised to repay her. He never did. Case 2. Jonathan Ray's ex-business partner. They launched a failed startup, Motive Spark Solutions. Derek bylaid when things went south, leaving Jonathan with a $30,000 business loan in his name. Lawsuit pending. Derek never showed up to court. A bench warrant was issued, then later rescinded after Jonathan moved states and dropped the case for mental health reasons. Case 3, April NG, a mutual friend. She let Derek crash on her couch for a few weeks. During that time, her laptop mysteriously went missing. So did her tax return check. She never pressed charges. Too embarrassed, Alina guessed. I stared at the files in disbelief. He was a serial manipulator, a career fraud wrapped in a charming exterior, and somehow he'd always slipped away. Why didn't any of this follow him? I asked. Alina sighed. Because he picks people who won't fight back. He doesn't leave bruises, he leaves chaos. And chaos isn't illegal unless you can prove it. Well, I was going to prove it. I spent nights combing through every detail. Social media, old addresses, shady online transactions. Derek had used over 6 different emails across the last 5 years. Most followed a pattern, some variation of more. Derek, D. Murray Official, Derek Free 2020. Yes, really. I tracked one to an online invoice for a contractor, $9,200 for home renovations, paid from a PayPal account under my name. I sent it to Evan. He called me back within an hour. This is good, keep going. The more I dug, the more Derek unraveled. He'd used a fake LLC to file for a government COVID loan, again, under my name. He'd opened an Amazon business account with a linked credit card I never knew existed. He bought a freaking espresso machine for $2,000 while I was living off instant coffee. The bile in my throat grew thicker with every discovery. But what broke me was an email chain from a year ago. To Amanda. Subject. Should we tell her? He wrote, she'll freak obviously, but she's too passive. She won't press charges. She never does. This will be fine. By the time she even notices, we'll be settled. Amanda replied, are you sure it feels wrong? Derek, so does being broke. You want that or a home for the kids? She's got good credit. She'll survive. That was the moment my tears dried for good. Because it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. He weighed my worth and decided I was expendable. He stole from me and told himself I could afford the pain. And Amanda let him. My hands shook as I added the screenshots to the file. They didn't just destroy my credit. They disqualified me from humanity, treating me like a bank account with legs and a name they could sign. I sat back, letting it sink in. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. This was personal. This was war. And Derek Moore? He was about to find out that the passive little sister wasn't passive anymore. I had the truth now, and I was going to use it like a blade. Derek had built his empire of lies on one thing. the assumption that I would never fight back. So I decided to do the one thing he never expected: watch him, not from a distance, from inside. It wasn't as hard as you'd think. I'd already been inside the house once, technically legal, remember? My name's still on the deed. I still had the photos, the forged documents, the evidence. But now I needed proof he was still lying. Proof that couldn't be dismissed as jealous sister drama or some misunderstanding. I needed him on tape, so I went back. It was the middle of the day, a Tuesday. I knew Amanda took the kids to a music class. Derek usually worked from home, but from Alina's tracking, we'd learned he spent most weekday afternoons at a poker room near downtown. Perfect. I parked around the corner, brought gloves, a hoodie, a small backpack with exactly four things inside: two mini cameras, motion activated, disguised as phone chargers, one keylogger USB stick, one digital recorder hidden in a smoke detector shell I bought online. This wasn't about legality anymore. This was about survival. I slipped in through the back, careful not to leave prints. My hands shook the entire time, but my purpose overpowered the panic. I planted the first camera in the hallway outlet near the office. The second went in the living room, both angled just right. The fake smoke detector. That one went in Derek's office, mounted above the desk. It had audio and video. The USB keylogger? Into his laptop's back port, less than 3 seconds. One click, done. Then I left, in and out in under 15 minutes. No sign of forced entry. No lights touched. No footsteps traced. I walked away as the legal owner of the house. With the most powerful tool in a battle like this, silence. That night I barely slept. The cameras were connected to a cloud service Alina helped me set up. Encrypted, untraceable. The first recording hit my inbox at 11:43 p.m. Derek had come home drunk. The clip was short, grainy, but clear. He stumbled in through the front door, grumbling to himself, tossed his keys on the counter, then started talking to no one. She thinks she's so smart. Rachel doesn't have the guts. Never did. She was born to be used. She's a resource, not a threat. He laughed to himself, actually laughed. Maybe she'll finally snap, get herself arrested. Wouldn't be the first time she blew something out of proportion. It hit like a punch. He was expecting me to self-destruct, to scream and ruin my own credibility, to let the rage eat me until I looked like the criminal. But I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. I'd give him a courtroom and a camera roll. The next few days, I collected more footage. Derek on calls, bragging about the mortgage scam, telling Amanda to keep her story straight just in case Rachel tries something dumb. Talking to a friend about how easy it is to fake a signature if you practice it enough. He even said the words, "If she sues, we just say she was in on it. Who are they gonna believe? Her or a guy with 2 kids and a mortgage?" That was it. That was the sentence, the nail in the coffin. I downloaded the clip and sent it to Evan and Alina. Within minutes, my phone rang. Evan didn't even say hello. "This is gold. This is everything. We move now." Eviction notice. I asked. "More than that, we go public if needed. We give this to the mortgage fraud division. We bury him." I closed my eyes, exhaling for the first time in weeks. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about the story. The story he built around me. The story everyone believed. Now I had the power to rewrite it. He wanted to use my identity? Fine. Now he'd see what it was like when the real Rachel Moore took control. The moment Derek realized I had the recordings was the first time I ever saw fear in his eyes. And God, it was beautiful. It started with a letter, delivered by courier, signed, sealed, and undeniable. An official notice of eviction. He had 30 days to vacate the property. He called me that same night, 3 missed calls in a row, followed by a single text: "You need to stop. You're ruining everything." I didn't respond. The next morning, he showed up at my apartment. I didn't answer the door. He pounded harder. I could hear his voice through the old wooden frame. "Rachel, come on, this is insane. You're overreacting. Let's talk like normal people." I waited until he left, then forwarded the footage from my peephole cam to Evan. He smiled. Let him dig his hole. That afternoon, I sent Derek an email. One sentence, no emotion. Attached is a video clip. I suggest you watch it carefully before contacting me again. The clip was just over 4 minutes. In it, Derek swaggered into his office, glass of whiskey in hand, and said to Amanda, "You know what the best part is. If Rachel pushes this, I tell them she gave me permission. I fake a few texts. Boom, end of story." Amanda asked, "Won't she fight back?" He laughed. "Rachel, she's never been a fighter. She folds the minute someone raises their voice." He paused, sipped, then said, "Honestly, I'm doing her a favor. She's got no life. She should be thanking me for giving her a stake in something. It was like watching a parasite gloat. Derek never replied to the email. Instead, he lawyered up. His attorney sent us a cease and desist, claiming illegal surveillance, emotional distress, and defamation. Evan barely blinked. That's what losers do when they panic, they bluff. We filed a countersuit the same day. Fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, forgery, unauthorized use of social security number. The entire case was wrapped in undeniable digital evidence, Derek's own voice, time-stamped and watermarked. The very lies he built his world on were now weapons in my arsenal. Meanwhile, I kept the cameras rolling. Every conversation he had with Amanda grew colder, sharper. She stopped sleeping in the same bed. One night, she packed a suitcase. Another night, she screamed at him through tears, "You said this would never come back to us." He slapped the table and said, "It wouldn't have if she'd just stayed in her lane." But I wasn't in a lane anymore. I was on a warpath. The neighborhood gossip kicked in too. Apparently, one of Amanda's friends, Trina, from the PTA, had seen the courthouse delivery and put two and two together. By the end of the week, whispers spread like wildfire. The Moore guy might be a fraud. Did you hear he used his sister's name? Amanda's been crying in her car for 2 hours. Derek tried to play it cool, still mowed the lawn, still waved at neighbors, but the mask was slipping. And the cameras caught all of it. Then came the hearing. Preliminary, civil court, small room, judge with tired eyes and a tight bun. I sat with Evan on one side. Derek sat on the other with a lawyer who looked like she regretted every life choice that led her to this case. The judge asked for opening remarks. Evan handed her a flash drive. "With your permission, Your Honor, we'd like to begin by playing a short video clip." She nodded, and there, in the middle of a dead silent courtroom, Derek's voice echoed. I fake a few texts, boom, end of story. You could feel the air get thicker. The judge leaned back slowly, folding her hands. "Mr. Moore, care to respond?" Derek stammered, his lawyer fumbled. "Your Honor, that clip was obtained." She held up a hand. "We'll address that separately. For now, I need to know whether this man's voice is in fact his own." Derek swallowed hard. "Yes, but—" "Thank you," she said flatly. "That will be enough for today." The motion to proceed with the eviction was granted on the spot. The fraud investigation was escalated. And suddenly, the man who used my name like a doormat was staring down the barrel of actual, real consequences. When we left the courthouse, Derek didn't say a word, but I looked him in the eye. For the first time in years, he was the one shrinking. He looked at me like I was a stranger, and maybe I was. Because the Rachel he remembered, the scared, quiet sister who forgave and forgot, was gone. And in her place was someone who had finally learned how to burn back. The justice system is slow, agonizingly, maddeningly slow. But once it starts to move, it grinds down everything in its path. And this time, it was grinding toward Derek. After the preliminary hearing, things accelerated. The judge had seen enough to greenlight not just eviction, but a full-scale civil fraud investigation. With the audio recordings, the forged documents, and Alina's digital trail, we had built a case so tight it could choke. Evan filed a civil suit for damages. Identity theft, emotional distress, fraudulent misrepresentation, and destruction of credit reputation. But more than anything, he pushed for criminal referral. And that's where things got serious. The Department of Financial Regulation picked it up. They called me 3 days after the hearing. "Ms. Moore," said a man who introduced himself as Special Investigator James Levin, "I've reviewed the file your attorney submitted. You have no idea how rare it is for someone to show up this prepared." "I had to be," I said. "He used everything I had." "Well, now it's our turn," Levin said. They subpoenaed the mortgage company, the credit card institutions. The banks, they matched IP addresses, login times, even phone call logs. All of it pointed to Derek. The clincher? The keylogger I installed. It had captured a dozen login sessions to fraudulent accounts registered under my name. Same laptop, same browser, same physical location. Then came the real bombshell. Amanda turned. I got a call from Alina first. She lawyered up and flipped. Amanda had entered into a cooperation agreement with the investigators. Immunity from prosecution in exchange for full cooperation and testimony. And oh, did she deliver? She gave them the emails, the voice memos, screenshots of text messages where Derek bragged about how dumb Rachel is and how she'll never fight this hard. Even the fake text messages he had drafted to make it look like I approved the mortgage, Amanda confessed she watched him type them. Every lie came tumbling out. And Derek, he kept trying to spin it. Claimed the recordings were doctored, that Amanda had mental health issues, that I was obsessed with him, but the system didn't care about his charm anymore. They cared about signatures, patterns, voice prints, data. And for the first time in his life, Derek Moore wasn't the narrator. He was the villain. He was served with formal criminal charges 2 weeks later, 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of wire fraud, 1 count of mortgage fraud, 1 count of falsifying financial statements. Bail was set high, too high for his poker room friends to help. He was arrested at the very house he'd stolen. Alina sent me a picture, Derek, in handcuffs, being walked down the front steps. The same steps I used to stand on as a ghost outside his perfect little lie. Now he was the one being removed. But the house? It still needed dealing with, because technically it was still mine. I had a choice: sell it and try to recoup what I could, or burn it to the ground metaphorically, turn it into a recovery shelter or a legal aid center or something he'd hate to know bore my name. I hadn't decided yet, but I did go back one last time. The kids' toys were gone. Amanda had taken them during the legal chaos. The furniture was still there, waiting to be claimed or sold. I walked through it slowly. Every room whispered something different now. Not betrayal, not rage, but release. I reached the office where it all began, the room where he forged my signature, recorded his arrogance, plotted my ruin. I opened the desk drawer. There was a note left on lined paper, torn at the edges. You win, hope it was worth it. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, it was sadness. Because in some dark corner of my heart, I had once wished for a brother. A real one, someone who protected me, laughed with me, shared more than blood and betrayal. But Derek was never that. He was a parasite. A con artist in brother's clothing. And now he was exposed. This wasn't just a legal victory. This was a story rebalanced. And I wasn't a footnote in Derek Moore's twisted saga anymore. I was the author. The day the sheriff arrived to enforce the eviction, the sky was overcast, like even the weather knew something was about to break. I watched from across the street in an old car I borrowed from Alina. Sunglasses on, hood up, engine quiet. I didn't want to be seen. Not by Derek, not by Amanda, not by the neighbors who once waved at them on their morning walks, now watching with folded arms and whispering behind curtains. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up at 9:02 a.m. sharp. 2 officers stepped out, calm, professional, detached. One rang the doorbell. The other waited near the gate with a clipboard. It took a minute, but Derek answered the door. Even from a distance, I could see it. His disheveled shirt, sunken eyes, the slouch of a man who hadn't slept in days. The officer handed him a notice and began explaining the timeline, the grace period, the lock change schedule, all the formalities. Derek didn't speak at first, just nodded slowly. Then the yelling started. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the gestures, the jabbing finger, the thrown hands, the pacing like a caged animal. He looked like he was trying to summon the old magic. The charm, the rage, the manipulation, but it was gone. No more lies to spin, no more stories to sell, no more Rachel to gaslight. He was out of moves. After about 10 minutes, the officers stepped back and let him slam the door. One of them pulled out a phone and began typing a report. It was official now. He had 30 days to get out. The house, the very thing he built on fraud and arrogance, was now a ticking clock. I stayed there long after the police left, just watching. An hour later, Amanda pulled up in a different car. She didn't go in. She stayed parked, engine running. Derek came out dragging a suitcase behind him. They didn't speak. He threw the suitcase in the backseat, climbed in, and they drove away. I never saw him return. Later that week, Evan confirmed. Derek had moved in with a cousin out of state, awaiting trial. Amanda filed for separation. The kids were staying with her parents. The house sat quiet, hollow, just walls and memories now. I visited once more, this time with the realtor. He was kind, gentle, older. He walked through the house with clipboard in hand, asking if I wanted to repaint or keep the kitchen as is. I didn't answer at first. I was too busy seeing the ghosts, not just Derek, me. The version of me who stood here in the dark months ago, trembling and broken, wondering how the hell her own brother could erase her life. I walked into the office again. The cameras were gone. The fake smoke detector, the keylogger. Only one thing remained: a dent in the wall where Derek had once thrown a phone during a heated call, caught on tape. The realtor stood beside me. Do you want to keep this room as an office? I smiled faintly. No. Turn it into a nursery. Someone else deserves new beginnings. He nodded. The house went on the market 3 weeks later. Sold within days, above asking price. The profit wasn't much after fees and debts, but it was enough to rebuild my life. I used the money to pay off everything Derek had wrecked. Closed fraudulent accounts, hired a credit recovery specialist, took myself on a small vacation, just me, a coastline and silence, and when I came back, I moved into a little cottage with ivy on the porch and no ghosts in the corners. For the first time in years, I slept 8 hours without waking up in panic. Derek's trial was set for the fall. Evan said we had more than enough to win. Amanda would testify. So would I, but I didn't need the verdict to feel free. That happened the day the eviction notice landed in Derek's hands, and he realized he couldn't charm his way out this time. He always thought I was weak. He was wrong. He thought I'd run. He was wrong. He thought I'd fold, but I filed. And when that eviction notice was delivered, it wasn't just paperwork. It was my past walking out the front door and never coming back. The funny thing about people like Derek is they build their entire lives on image. Charm, control, appearances. Take that away, and you watch them crumble faster than anyone else. After the eviction notice was served, Derek tried to act unfazed, like it was all part of some misunderstanding that would be cleared up soon. He even posted on Facebook, "Big changes coming." Sometimes life throws curveballs, but we adapt. Family first, stronger than ever. I didn't reply, but the comment section turned fast. One neighbor wrote, "Stronger than ever, after what you did to your sister." Another, "What about the fraud charges?" Then came the real blow. A local blogger picked up the story. "Alina," I texted, "did you leak this?" Her reply, "The article was brutal. Local father accused of using sister's identity to buy home, faces federal charges." It quoted the court filing, mentioned Amanda's cooperation, even cited Derek's own voice from the leaked audio. By the end of the day, Derek deleted all his social media. And that's when the calls started, first from friends, then extended family, then reporters. He called me too, once, just once, voicemail. "Rachel, I know you think you're doing the right thing, but this doesn't just affect me. The kids, Amanda, mom, and dad, you're tearing us apart. Please, we can fix this." I didn't save the message. I sent it straight to Evan, who added it to the file under emotional manipulation attempts. A few days later, mom called. Her voice was tight, like she hadn't slept. "Rachel, what's happening?" "You know exactly what's happening," I said. "Derek said you're blowing this out of proportion." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't cry anymore. "He stole my identity, Mom, ruined my credit. Bought a house using my name, and you're still making excuses. He says you were in on it." I paused, and then I said, quietly but firmly, "He also said I'd never fight back. Looks like he was wrong twice." She didn't speak for a moment. "I just don't want to lose both my children." "You lost one a long time ago," I said. "You just didn't notice." Click. That night, Derek's spiral began in earnest. According to Alina, who still had a neighbor source, Derek had started showing up at bars earlier in the day, slurring words, asking people if they knew a good lawyer for federal stuff. He lost his side gig consulting for a real estate firm. Word had gotten around. No one wanted a fraudster in their office. Amanda had moved out officially, filed for legal separation. Told friends she never wanted to see him again. And me, I went on with my life. Therapy twice a week. Reading again, painting a bit. I even started volunteering at a financial literacy program for women rebuilding after abuse or financial trauma. Because that's what it was, really. Financial abuse. He didn't hit me, he didn't scream, he stole my worth, quietly, strategically, believing I wouldn't notice until it was too late, but now he was the one falling apart. The proud, arrogant man who once laughed at the idea of consequences was now facing prison time, losing custody, and being known for what he truly was: a liar, a thief, a coward. His panic became public. Neighbors heard him shouting at his new roommate. An audio clip even leaked him yelling, "It's her fault, she ruined me." "No, Derek, you ruined yourself. I just handed you the mirror." In the end, it wasn't a single moment that broke him. It was the slow, steady collapse of every lie he built, toppling one by one until there was nothing left but the truth. And the truth was finally louder than him. It's hard to describe the feeling of walking back into a house you never lived in, but paid for with your own name, your own life, your own ruin. Harder still when it's finally yours. The eviction was complete. Derek gone, Amanda gone. The house silent. I entered with a new set of keys and a locksmith's receipt still warm in my purse. I stood at the doorway for a full minute, the air heavy with old lies, old laughter, old noise that didn't belong to me. I walked room by room slowly. No ghosts jumped out, just echoes, a juice stain on the living room carpet, a forgotten baby sock behind the couch, finger paint smears on the hallway wall. For a moment, I felt like an intruder in someone else's memories, until I reminded myself those memories were paid for in my name, my credit, my trust. Derek didn't build this home. He borrowed it from me. And now I had taken it back. I went upstairs. The kids' room was empty now, stripped of personality. Amanda had taken their beds, their books, their toys. What remained was the faint scent of bubblegum shampoo and something that reminded me of story time. I lingered just a moment. They didn't ask for this. They were innocent. But Derek? He made them pawns in a fraud, used their presence to shield himself from suspicion, posted them online like trophies while using their aunt as a human stepping stone. He didn't deserve them. I stepped into the master bedroom, empty except for the closet, a few suits left behind, too expensive for someone who never earned them honestly. I boxed them up for donation. Let someone else wear the clothes of a man who'd finally been stripped bare. The last place I went was the office. The room where it all started, where the printer hummed late into the night while Derek practiced my signature, where he drafted lies and built his paper castle of fraud. Now the desk was clean, wiped down, a blank canvas. I sat in his old chair, now mine, and opened my laptop. One tab, real estate listing. Another, a blank Word document. And a third, the court calendar for Derek's trial. I began typing. Victim statement, Rachel Moore. I poured it all in. The confusion, the betrayal, the silence, the rage, the grief, the transformation. I told the story the court needed to hear, but more than that, I told it for me. Because for too long, Derek had told my story for me, twisted it, performed it, manipulated it to fit his narrative, but not anymore. Not in this room, not in this house, not in this life. He took so much, my credit, my promotion, my peace, my sense of safety. But now, I'd reclaimed more, my voice, my dignity, my future. Even my fear, once crippling, had transformed into strength, because walking through that house didn't hurt anymore. It didn't sting. It didn't haunt. It reminded me that I'd survived. No, I'd won. Later that day, I met with the realtor again. I've decided, I said, sell it. I nodded, he glanced around. It's a beautiful house. Not for me, I replied, but maybe for someone who doesn't have to steal to feel whole. He gave me a small smile. Want to keep anything? I paused, I looked around one last time. No, I said, everything I want I already have. And with that I walked out, locked the door behind me, and this time I didn't look back. They say revenge is sweet. But what they don't tell you is, justice is messy. You think it'll feel like a movie, that the villain goes to prison, the music swells, and you walk off into a clean, peaceful life. But real life doesn't work that way. There's no music. No fade to black, just aftermath. Derek's trial began 5 months after the eviction. By then, he had been indicted on 4 felony counts, with the fifth dropped in exchange for Amanda's testimony. I wore a navy suit, hair tied back. Face calm, but inside, I was a storm. Amanda sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, clutching her own statement. She didn't meet my eyes, I didn't need her to. We weren't friends, we weren't allies. We were just two women who had loved the same lie in different ways and paid for it. Derek walked in looking nothing like the man who once waved from his front lawn like a king. He was pale, drawn. His suit hung loose. His hands trembled slightly when he sat down. He avoided my eyes. That was new. The prosecution presented everything: the documents, the recordings, the surveillance footage, the witness statements. Every arrogant sentence he thought was private was now public record. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on 3 of 4 charges. The wire fraud charge got hung, technicality, but it didn't matter. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by mandatory restitution and 2 years of supervised release. I sat through the sentencing in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. Even when Derek turned to address the court, I was desperate, he said. I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt anyone, especially not my sister. He paused as if expecting me to fold again, but I didn't. I just watched him, and for the first time in our lives, he was the one drowning in silence. After court, reporters tried to catch me. Rachel, do you feel vindicated? Do you forgive your brother? What's next for you? I said nothing, because nothing I said would capture what this journey had taken, what it had broken, what it had built. Forgiveness? Maybe, one day, not for him, but for me, because hate is heavy and I'd carried it long enough. But that didn't mean I'd forget, because the scars weren't going away. My credit was still recovering. Some relationships ruined forever. My parents had gone radio silent after the verdict. I heard through a cousin that mom still believed Derek was just misunderstood. Maybe he was, but misunderstanding doesn't buy a house with your sister's name. I went home that night and poured a glass of wine. Sat on the porch of my new apartment, a tiny place with peeling paint and a cat that wasn't mine but liked to visit. And I just breathed. I wasn't the same woman who opened a foreclosure notice and thought it was junk mail. That woman was gone. In her place was someone sharper, wiser, stronger. Someone who'd learned that silence is not strength when it's used to enable. That family doesn't mean loyalty without accountability. That justice, it's never clean, it's slow. It's painful, it costs more than you think. But when it comes, when it finally comes, it doesn't taste like revenge, it tastes like freedom. And freedom, I've learned, is worth everything, even your last name.